You're dialed in to the Dog Pound Podcast, your weekly shot of Cleveland Browns recaps, reactions, and rants with your hosts, John Drake and Chris Akin.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Dog Pound Podcast for the 2019 season. I am your host, John Drake. Back with me is the mighty Chris Akin. And we are less than a week now, because technically at this time next week the game will be over. So we are officially less than 1 week away from regular season Cleveland Browns football. And it's definitely a super, super exciting time to be a fan, considering we have not had this level of hope and optimism in, God.
Ever?
Since the 80s? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this offseason was like, basically like the Browns were just playing fantasy football, you know. It's, I think we're going to go get Odell Beckham Jr. I think we're going to go get Kareem Hunt. You know, I mean, it's been insane.
It has been. And you know, you mentioned that we haven't had this much excitement since the 80s. How clear of a memory is that to you? Because for me, you know, I'm 52, or no, I'm not. I'm 50. But I mean, I remember those times, but I don't remember them as well. Like, I don't remember the full-blown excitement like we have going into this season. This is exciting, man, and it's, you know, it's weird because you and I are polar opposites of excitement level where we are this year, and I know why. It's because you are all in, you've bought in, and I can't shake the last 20 years yet. I just can't do it. I'm still like, Baker's going to break his ankle in game one and we're going to fucking lose every game. You know, I'm just like, I can't get past Browns that I'm used to anymore. I can't think back to Webster Slaughter and Brian Brennan and the original Dog Pound. And, you know, I can't get there quite yet. I'm trying. I'm just not getting there yet.
Yeah, it's, you know, to answer your first question, I remember like the excitement of like the 80s teams vividly, because that's, you know, those were the years that I became a fan. You know, the first game I ever saw was January of '86, the Browns and Dolphins in the AFC wild card. And so my first full season being a fan was '86, you know, so, and I was a 10-year-old kid. So to me, like what we're going through right now, all this like unbelievable, like unbridled enthusiasm and whatnot, to me, that's what being a Browns fan is. I mean, that's how I grew up.
Right.
So this is how that felt. So I definitely remember it. In terms of, you know, I have to agree with you. Like I am so fired up for the season. I mean, part of it is because every season I'm just like ready to run through a goddamn brick wall, you know, week one. But I am, you know, to be completely honest, I'm still partially in the same boat you're in that, you know, we're like that old tired dog that just keeps getting his ass kicked.
Right.
You know, and you know, eventually the dog gets adopted by a loving family and everything's fine. But for a while, even when you're with that new family, the dog's like, well, I don't know, man. I'm too used to getting my ass kicked. Like, you know,
exactly.
like, and that's how I feel. Like I'm with you on that, in that we're so used to being downtrodden that it's like, okay, well, you know, everything looks awesome on paper, but we've seen way too many seasons on paper and not enough on the field. Right. So I'm nervous like you are.
Yeah. The last 20 years have been the Chevy Chase dog ride. It's just been yeah. Horrific. And dude, before we even get into the Browns right now, I want to go to a former Brown who is making me laugh right now. Are you watching and laughing at stupid Hugh Jackson looking for sympathy from Browns fans?
Dude, what is he doing? Like, oh, well, I have depression and I have this. Like, yeah, you've also got like $20 million in the bank for being the worst coach in NFL history. Yeah. I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah,
you know,
he was what, 4-36 or something is his record.
Yeah,
here?
I mean, he won. What the hell was he won? He won 4 games with us and 8 games with the Raiders. So he has a total of 12 wins in 4 seasons as a head coach in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, with us, he made $5 million a win.
Oh, God, could you? How do you sign up for that racket?
Yeah, no kidding. I'm sure I could squeeze out a win or two at that cost. I'd find a way.
Yeah. Right. And that guy still lives in Cleveland too?
Does he?
Yeah.
Boy, he's
I mean,
bold.
Could you imagine like running into Hugh Jackson in public? You just want to like throw things at the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you son of a bitch. Like,
I'm not shopping at this giant eagle anymore.
exactly. I'd be like, you know what, asshole? You owe me $3,000 for those 2 seasons of season tickets when you got one damn win out of it.
Right. Just go up to him and
You owe me some.
Just go up to him and squirt a bottle of stadium mustard on him. Fuck you.
Right. Yeah. I just think of all cities on the, in the country, the guy would never live in after being fired by the Browns. It'd be Cleveland, and yet he's still here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he does like awesome charity work, so that's cool. But I mean, oh my God, like you can't imagine anybody ever walks up to him and is like, "Hey man, I know you tried hard. Thanks a lot."
But
I mean, even me.
Everybody does. You know damn well everybody does. Hugh, really wasn't your fault, man. Just wish it would have worked out better. That's what he gets.
If anybody does, that's some horse shit, because even me, who I try to be nice, like I wouldn't even say anything. I'd be like, man, you really fucked us. Like,
and you
there's
were
nothing good to say.
And you were hardcore on I remember you when he got signed with the "In Hugh We Trust," and I was like, dude, let him win some games first before we start trusting him.
I was looking at that Raider team, which was highly average, and he had him at 500 in one season. I was like, that's a good coaching job. So, I was optimistic, and shows where the hell that got me.
Well, you put him next to Brandon Weeden in the John Drake Hall of Fame.
It wasn't. Now, the Brandon Weeden thing, I wasn't so sure. I mean, it was Trent Richardson was one where I really blew it.
T. Rich.
That one.
That was great. You were like, this guy's going to the Hall of Fame.
Dude,
you literally said, wait a minute.
Hall of Fame, but I did predict a huge second season.
You did say Hall of Fame. You said, I still remember this because I couldn't believe it was coming out of your mouth. It was so fucking stupid. You said if he keeps it up like this, he's a surefire Hall of Famer. After one season, I was like, come on, dude. He's not Earl Campbell.
He was dominant that rookie season, and then I was thinking, okay, he's going to make like big strides in year 2. I don't know what I still can't explain it, because the guy was like, he had like 14 touchdowns a year or something, and he was like 900 yards receiving and like or rushing and like 500 receiving. Like the guy had a great season. And you're thinking, this is as a rookie. I mean, imagine now that he knows what the hell he's doing in the NFL, and instead it went the complete opposite way.
Yeah, and then he ended up so bad that he was not even a good runner in the AAF.
Oh, dude, cautionary tale. Holy God.
I feel bad for that guy though, because more than anybody, I don't usually feel bad for any of these athletes because they make a boatload of money. But you know what? I liked Trent Richardson. I have to say, as much as I dog you about T. Rich, I liked him. He came into this town. He tried to adapt to the town. Remember, he was doing the Subway commercials, and he was out and about doing charity stuff and shaking hands with people and just hanging out after games and signing autographs. I mean, he tried to be a Cleveland Brown, and it just didn't work. And I feel bad for him that his whole career went right to hell. But
yeah, he was a really good dude, man. He's like one of those guys you want to root for.
Yeah.
And
I even heard him do it. He did an interview. I think I had forwarded it to you over the summer. He did an interview with Bull and Fox or somebody. And and I wanted to support him again. I became a Birmingham Iron AAF fan for those 8 weeks because he was on that team. And I was like, I got to support T. Rich. He's former Brown. I got to support that guy.
Yeah.
And then just I guess it just happens, though, with former Browns. They just don't do much. Did you happen to see Johnny Manziel doing the insurance company commercial this weekend?
No.
He's hawking insurance.
Well, that guy's rich anyway. He was rich before he even played football. So go figure. He's just taking drinking money from people now.
It's just funny seeing him. He's in some awful red suit that looks like he stole it from Bill Nye the Science Guy. And he's just like, "Hey, I'm Johnny Manziel for ABC Insurance, whatever the insurance company is. And if you want a deal, he should be like, if you drive drunk like I do, you should get this insurance because they'll pay out no matter what."
Yeah. When I got behind the wheel, hammered and got busted, such and such insurance covered my ass.
They took care of me. That's why I'm a Progressive lifetime subscriber.
Right. Oh my God, Johnny. Oh my God, I was. We'll get to the current Browns here in a second, but I was, man, when you read those, like the draft picks that the Browns blew through all those years, like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was bad.
And he was, that pick was, I think that was the T. Rich pick. Joe Banner absolutely fleeced the Colts for T. Rich. You get an extra first-round pick and turn it into absolutely nothing.
Yeah, big zero for Johnny.
Yeah, and in contrast, getting to the current team, remember when we took on the contract of Brock Osweiler?
Yeah.
From the and everyone's like, "Oh, this is a bunch of crap. Like, you're paying for a second-round pick. Like, you need the salary cap." Everyone's bitching about basically buying a second-round pick. Well, I don't think anybody's bitching about Nick Chubb anymore.
No, definitely not.
Because that's the pick. Yeah, we picked Chubb with that Osweiler pick.
Yeah.
And so, that just goes to show how quickly things turn around. It's like, and getting to our current team, every year there's these stories about a team that's like sucked ass for, 10 years. Mm-hmm. They have like a change at the top, and then like 2 years later, like the Rams, perfect example. They were garbage for years. They hire McVay. And, first year they're in the playoffs, second year they're in the Super Bowl. It's like, okay, It's awesome that we are finally, at least, like, again, it's on paper, but it's nice that it looks like we might finally be that story.
Yeah, it'll be nice if we are that story. I have a hard time for several reasons getting to that point, though, and I'm sure we're going to cover all of them. But, I personally, I've McVay is such a McVay and what's the guy's name in Chicago? Nagy?
Yeah, Matt Nagy.
They are such an exception to the rule, and usually bringing in a coach like we did with Freddie, it's ballsy, it's dangerous, it's stunning, and I like what I hear from Freddie, but again, some of what he's doing too, it makes me think, first time coach. Taking some chances, trying to set his own way. Is he reading the other guy's press, or is he just going with his gut? Or is he listening to his football guys? Some of his moves have been a little kind of, I don't want to say bad or wrong or anything, because we'll see, obviously as the weeks go by, but they definitely have made me scratch my head more than once.
Such as
the punter. We can start right there. I get it. The Hammer is a monster, and he kicks the ball far, and he's got a monster leg. I get all that. But this is a team that has lived and died forever on field position. And just because we expect to score a lot of points, I don't want to just assume that we score a lot of points. And say what you will about Colquitt, the guy's a pros pro in a family of pros when it comes to punters. He makes all the kicks. He keeps it inside the 10 when it needs to be inside the 10. He booms the 60-yarder when we need that. He has the right spin on the kicks when they hit the ground, they spin the right way. They don't bounce back 15 yards the wrong way. He's a pros pro when it comes to punting, and I hate seeing giving up that kind of that piece. And it's an important piece. I think field position this year more than any, when we have a more potent offense, is going to be important. It's going to be important that when we don't score points, that we don't leave the ball, at midfield, that we put the ball back at the 10-yard line or whatnot, because we've got such a strong defense that if the punting game is strong, and again, I don't know if Gillen's going to be great or bad. I'm going to assume that he's going to be good. But if he's not, if he's average, and we have this great defense, but we're not giving them those extra 10 yards, kind of cushion to fight through, that kind of defeats the purpose of having the great offense, because the great offense will always be starting in bad field position. And for me, I just looked at that move and I was like, my goodness, we are really gonna go with the unproven over basically a Pro Bowler. I mean, I don't think he was a Pro Bowler last year, but he's been a Pro Bowler.
I don't remember if he was or not, but he's definitely, excellent at the coffin corner punting and all that kind of stuff. I think, my question to you is, I think the decision is twofold, and I want to see if you agree. I think, I really think that it's, and as much as, a punter doesn't make a lot of money, I really wonder if part of it is a salary cap decision, just to try and shave a little bit off, knowing that, first of all, you might want to sign guys to the 53 that get cut, or, saving room for down the road when you have to sign Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward to these big contracts. But also, they hired Mike Prefer, who's like one of the best special teams coaches in the league.
Right.
And I wonder if it's, number one, partially a salary cap move, but also number two, a commentary basically saying, well, we believe that Prefer can coach this guy up on the fly and get him up to speed to where it's, losing Colquitt is not really that big of a loss. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, as far as salary cap goes, there's an old NFL saying that goes around that you don't make salary cap decisions on your starters unless you don't plan to win. So, I mean, the Bills can go ahead and cut McCoy because they're not going to win. Fine, you can make the salary cap move and you can bring in the guy that costs less and get him, built up for that. When you're a team that thinks you're going to win, you do not cut starters because of money. You just don't do that. It's not smart business to do that. You're either all in or you're not all in. You can't be all in except for at this starting position. And I'll give you the example of that. We were kind of all in last year, except for the field goal kicking position. And what a disaster that was that cost us 3 wins.
Yeah, it cost us the playoffs, I think.
However it would have played out, it was either the playoffs, but it was at least 3 wins, which would have been, 10-6? 10-5-1. We'd have been 10-5-1, I think we would have been. So if we 9-5-1,
you got to figure that tie would have been a win. That's one of the. I mean, the Saints game. So I mean, weeks 1 and 2 were definitely kicking concerns, and then Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. So I mean, those are the 3 standout games. So you're looking at 10-6 right there.
Right. Well,
because you were 0-2-1 in those 3.
So my question is, and we can't answer it yet, but is how many points are we going to give up if the Hammer, and I love the nickname, the Hammer, that's great. But
the Scottish Hammer,
Scottish Hammer, I love that. But if the Hammer is getting starting position for the other team at the 25 or the 30-yard line versus Colquitt giving starting field position at the 10 or the 15, how many points is that going to cost us, and how much more production are we gonna have to get from Mayfield and Landry and OBJ and Chubb and whatnot? You see what I mean? Totally. There's value in it, but it's not the kind of value that you look at and go, well, this guy's punting average is 42.3 and this guy's is 49. So clearly we got to go with the guy that's 49. It's a different position, and it's not the kind that you can weigh only on stats. And I'm sure obviously these guys know that. They're not stupid men. This is what they do. But, it's a move that I don't think a veteran coach would have made. I don't think Bill Belichick is cutting his punter for a rookie based on salary cap.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Belichick, because the one thing that not a lot of people talk about is that the interesting thing about the Hammer, besides his awesome nickname, he's a lefty punter, and Bill Belichick swears by lefty punters because the ball apparently it comes off their foot weird, and it's harder to catch, and it's more wonky in the air or something like that. So Bill Belichick just he swears by him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's a competitive advantage.
Maybe. I mean, and again,
I'm with you. Like, I mean, I'm not as fired up about it as you are, but I was also very surprised that they made that move for the same reasons that you said. I mean, Colquitt was, he was super solid. He was like, when Phil Dawson was our kicker, like Colquitt was that solid as a punter. It was like you knew you're getting a quality punt. Your field position was going to be hooked up, and
yeah.
So it's definitely interesting that they're taking that chance.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you another place that I feel like they're taking a chance. And honestly, I don't think this is a Freddie thing. I think it's more of a John Dorsey thing. And, I know, God forbid, you're not supposed to say anything bad about Dorsey. And certainly I don't have a lot to say bad about him. But I really feel like he did not do his job as well as he could have on the offensive line this year.
I agree.
We knew there were holes.
100%.
And the best that we've gotten for the hole is the guy that they just traded for the other day that started 7 games.
Teller.
Yeah. And okay, he started 7 games. Fair enough. But, we're allegedly we're building this offense here. We're building this super team of offense, and none of that's going to mean anything if Baker's on his ass. You know, and that's, it disturbs me that Dorsey didn't do anything to upgrade the position really, and that we're going into week 1, and I'm listening to Freddie Kitchens' phone conference call yesterday, and he's still talking about competition into the season for guard and for tackle and stuff. I'm like, dude, it's about time to give up on Austin Corbett and get rid of him and get other people, to fill that spot that are more. We can't have experiments anymore. This isn't the old Browns where, you throw somebody in there and it doesn't matter if they give up no sacks or 8 sacks, because they're learning. We can't learn anymore.
Yeah.
We got what, $60 million of high value targets on the offense now. We got to protect them and score points.
Yeah, I agree. It was funny. I heard it's like it's sad, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Like an incredible point on the radio the other day. Someone said, how ironic is it that all the now we're bitching about the offensive line, and we need offensive line help, and the team is actually apparently good again.
Mm-hmm.
And all those years that we were awful, the offensive line was awesome.
I know,
and it's true.
It is true. It's true, and you know what I mean. I think it's the ebb and flow of money. You bring in a guy like Odell, well, he costs a shitload of money, and when you have to spend that much money at one position, you don't have money to spend, equally across the table, so to speak, and we're feeling that pinch right now. We're feeling that pinch, and it's going to get worse because let's face it, you got Baker on rookie contract. You got Njoku on rookie contract. You got Chubb on rookie contract. Wait till
Myles
those
Garrett
guys.
and Denzel Ward.
Yeah.
I mean, Myles Garrett is in year 3.
Yeah,
He'll probably want something after this year. I mean, if he blows up this year, the way the league is trending, I mean, they're going to want that 5th-year option, but he's going to want something before year 4 potentially.
Myles Garrett, they better give Khalil Mack money to. And they would be smart. They'd be smart to do it now. Just do it now. Put the same thing that they did with Clowney. With Javanian Clowney over in Seattle yesterday, where he signed a tender or something, even though he has to play the full year in order to get to the tender. He already signed his tender to re-sign with Seattle like a year in advance.
Well, that was for that was like his franchise tender or something like that. But can you believe that trade? By the way, and we'll get back to Browns in a second. Can you believe that trade?
It's a dumb trade.
Whoever the hell the owner is of the Texans now, they need to get Bill O'Brien as far away from the negotiating table as possible.
Yeah, that was.
I mean, he basically gave us a 3rd rounder for Duke Johnson, which I love Duke Johnson, but here's a little factoid. That was the highest compensation given for a running back in a trade in the NFL since the Browns got a 1st rounder for Trent Richardson. I mean, that's how little value that running backs have in trades.
Right.
So everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then he gave up Clowney for some jobber, Barkevius Mingo, and a third-round pick. I mean, like what? I mean, that's nothing.
Barkevius Mingo, another one of the great Browns.
I was gonna say, speaking of Browns draft picks, I just, oh my God, and I mean that's insane to me, especially considering the deal they had on the table with the Dolphins that they were trying to do was Laramie Tunsil and 2 first-round picks, and they go from that to this like dump truck.
Yeah,
they got from Seattle.
Yeah, it's bad business, and clearly the Texans took I think the Texans may have taken themselves out of the division. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I mean, they're still a good team, and obviously, certain people quitting don't hurt very much. Don't hurt their chances, but I don't know, man. It's not a good move. It's definitely not. If I was a Texans fan, I'd be pissed. I'd be really pissed off that you gave away basically the cornerstone of your defense.
I mean, it's not J.J. Watt, but I mean, he is.
Yeah, but Watt's old. Watt's old at this point, and he's hurt regularly.
Yeah. I mean, they've got Watt, Merciless, and Clowney, so you had 3 guys, and I guess the logic is, well, he's not going to sign a long-term deal and whatever, but I mean, God, get something for the guy.
Well, they did.
Like,
They got Barkevius Mingo.
Right. Jeez. God, welcome to our nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
But, in terms of Myles Garrett, like I completely agree. Like as soon as they can lock him up, which I mean, they're going to, and I mean the guy seems like he's so all in with the community that I think it's like a foregone conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, especially, I think your idea about doing it, now is smart because the guy looks like he's poised to just absolutely eat the NFL for lunch this season.
Dude,
so
me and you were texting back and forth on the second game or the third game, whichever game it was that we were texting back and forth, and he looked like a monster. Just he's lining up on the left, he's lining up on the right, and I mean, no one could keep up with him.
Yeah. He was like 2 feet ahead of the damn offensive lineman as soon as the ball snapped. Like his quickness off the line is unbelievable.
Right. He reminds me. What was the guy's name from? I can't remember him. Was it Freeney? Dwight Freeney, from the Colts. He reminds me of that guy that was super super fast off the snap, and used to do that inside out thing where he would like spin out but then cut back in.
Yeah.
Miles reminds me of that. Not the spin move necessarily, but the quickness that he has. His feet are so fast, and he's a monster. When somebody bulls up on him, they can't stop him there either.
Yep. Well, I mean, you saw those workout videos of him this offseason. I mean, it's like, God damn. I mean, he's, he dropped 10 pounds, but gained muscle.
Right.
And he's doing MMA training with the greatest heavyweight in UFC history, Cleveland's own Stipe Miocic. A little bit of a plug for our fair city. Yeah. I mean, he's doing MMA training, and those box jumps he was doing. I mean, that's just like, are you kidding me? Like, the guy is an absolute freak, and I mean, he is fantastic. But I mean, it's just beating a dead horse at this point. But something that we've talked about on the show already. It's like, oh, it's on paper. Mm-hmm. But something that we could say officially is not on paper that we've actually seen, that defensive front four is nasty.
Yeah, the whole defense is, I mean...
did you see that Devereaux Lawrence guy the other night?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's unblockable too.
Dude.
So it's like now it's not even, you got like a front four. It's like you're bringing other guys in off the bench that could start, easily start for 20 of the other teams in the NFL.
Well, dude,
I mean, that's just brutal.
And the same at corner. I mean, we're so stacked now with the corners. And did Greedy end up being the starter or no?
No, Money Mitchell's going to be.
Okay, because at what point did we get to the point that we could draft somebody that high and not put them on the field immediately?
That's what I was saying about these teams that turn it around in 2 years. Like, it's nice that it looks if things go the way they should,
Yeah.
or that we're hoping, that we're that story, because Dorsey just keeps making great moves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I came out the gate hammering hard on certain aspects, but again, I'm talking about the punting, for God's sakes,
Yeah, dude. I mean, and that's that in itself right there says it all. I mean, seasons past, we're talking about the quarterback battle, or the receiver battle, or something. And the only thing anybody really talked about this year was, all right, well, who's going to be the 5th and 6th wide receiver,
right,
and who's going to be the kicker? And I mean, that was the only thing that we were talking about. It's like that never happens to us.
Yeah, you're right, and it's a good thing. Although I'm not real thrilled with the kicking decision either, to be perfectly honest. I wish they would have at least brought in somebody that was a veteran to try against against these other guys. But we'll see. I mean, what's his name? Seifert? He looked okay in
Seibert, yeah, Seibert,
whatever his name is. I'm not learning it because I don't expect him to stay, quite honestly. But
please don't say that. We already had kicking problems last year. Don't. Well, what was it? That Ricky Bobby? Don't you bring that on me, Ricky Bobby?
I just would have liked to have seen a veteran kicker at least in there. I mean,
I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, and sorry to cut you off your point, dude. I looked it up because I thought the same thing. Honestly, there wasn't anybody out there to get. I mean, when you looked at the available guys, the only one, and I didn't even know this, he was retired. The Falcons just talked him out of retirement, but is that Matt Bryant guy. I mean, and the Falcons cut him last year. Like, yeah, you're 44, like you're getting old, screw you, and he retired. And their kicking situation was so bad they talked him out of retirement.
What's Morten Anderson doing? I mean, he can't be more than mid-50s, can he?
I do, right? I tell you what, man. I've seen 2 reports now that some people around the organization think that if the kicking situation is shit right off the bat, that they're going to wait till about mid-season and they're actually going to try and talk to Phil Dawson.
Wouldn't shock me.
Dude. I mean, the thinking is like that he doesn't want to go through the full season, but for like a half a season, he might do it. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah, but
again, I'm hoping the cyber. I mean,
let's not lose 3 games to figure that out.
No, I know. I mean, thankfully, Cyber, I mean, he's 8 for his last 8, which is really good. So, he appears to have turned the corner, and he had success in college. So, I mean, we'll see. Yeah. But it's nice that that's what we're worried about.
No, yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm very optimistic about the team. That said, I'm not ready to say 13-3 either. I'm just not there. I have to see it on the field. I just have to see it on the field. I have no doubts in my mind that Baker to OBJ is going to be something that we're screaming and hollering at our TVs about over and over and over all season long. That being said,
you'll be shocked to hear that I drafted both of them in fantasy football.
Oh wow, really? You kidding? Are you kidding? What was Antonio Brown not available, or Ben Roethlisberger?
I tried to get Nick Chubb too and lost out on him. and by the way, you know damn well that in fantasy football I have a no stealer rule.
Yeah,
so.
No. Did you grab Kareem Hunt late?
No, somebody else did. But I was going to.
Of course.
So I'm with you. Like, you have to see it on the field. I mean, this Tennessee game, I'm honestly going to be surprised. And I know, like, this is maybe a little bit aggressive and bold, but I really am going to be a little bit surprised if the Browns don't, like, absolutely roll them. I mean, like, beat the shit out of them, because the energy is so unbelievably high. And, I mean, the defense alone, I mean, did you see, I think it was the 3rd Titans preseason game, what they did?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the Titans starters are in there.
Yeah.
It was one drive. The offensive line for the Titans was so bad. The starting offensive line, Mariota was getting knocked around so bad on the first drive of that game that they pulled Mariota for the rest of the game, so he didn't get injured behind that line. I mean, so what do you think? What do you think our defensive line's going to do? I mean, Taylor Lewan is suspended, so they don't even have their Pro Bowl left tackle.
Right.
They got a backup in. I mean, dude. I mean, just the defense alone should be able to absolutely just crush the Titans' offensive line, which is going to give our offense the ball a ton.
Yeah.
So
the only concern about our offense though is that it hasn't played together.
How much credence do you give that? I'm kind of on the fence with that as to how important it is or isn't because of the way that they set up their practices.
I give it credence to the timing issue with the receivers. With the running backs, doesn't really matter. You stick the ball in their gut and they run. I mean that doesn't matter much, but Baker has to be more than he has to be instinctive of the speed of who he's throwing to throw it to the right spot. We do not want what we've had in the past, and not from Baker, but from other quarterbacks where they fling it out there and you've got guys stopping to try and catch the ball or trying to come back on the ball all the time or whatnot. You want Baker was great last year at throwing to spots, and he made a bunch of average receivers look pretty damn good. But he doesn't have to make these receivers this year look good. He shouldn't have to. I mean, OBJ is probably the best receiver in the NFL, right now. If he's not number one, he's number 1, 2, or 3. He's
top 3 for sure.
He's one of the best in the NFL. That alone is going to make Jarvis Landry, who was the best reception receiver, possession receiver. He was number 1 up until last year when Baker started throwing the ball around to everybody. With the Dolphins, what do you have, 110 catches or something the year before? He
averaged 100 receptions a year.
Yeah, so you've got arguably the best possession receiver, you've got arguably the best overall receiver, and you've got a burner on the other side once he stops burning blunts with Callaway. So, right. I mean, you've got the speed guy, you've got the all-everything guy, and you've got the possession guy. So Baker doesn't have to make them better, but he has to have timing with those guys. He has to.
Yeah. Do you think there was really any other option, though? I mean, they purposely kept OBJ out because of his injury history. I mean, they bubble wrapped him, and I'm fine with that. I mean, it's better to me. It's better to, completely puss out and not play him at all, so that at least he's 100% for the regular season.
Yeah, I'm fine with that if they would have done it across the board. And again, this goes to Freddie, I think, being a bit of a rookie coach. If you're gonna do that, then keep Baker out too. Why was Baker out there in the third game of the year? That was just dumb. He didn't get hurt, but he could have got hurt. And I know Baker wanted to, but you know what? You're the head coach now, not his buddy. You got to say, you know what, dude? Sit down.
I could see it. I mean, Baker himself said he had stuff he wanted to work on, and I think we saw in that game, there was a little bit of rust, I would say.
But here's the deal. Baker's not the coach. This is where I have the fears about Freddie Kitchens a little bit. Freddie and Baker have that great relationship that they built last year as coordinator player. But that's not Freddie's job anymore. He's not that guy anymore. He's got to make decisions that affect the entire game now. And if he can make that decision with Odell, why can't he make the same decision? Who's more important to this team, Odell Beckham Jr. or Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point.
And he put the more important guy out there potentially to get hurt by a guy that's doing baggage check today out at Hopkins. That's dangerous play right there. And again, I'm definitely not trying to be all negative or anything. I'm definitely not negative on the season. It's just I'm looking at little things and I'm like, I'm hopeful that, it's just the way it's playing out with this setup, and it's not little things that are going to turn into bigger things later, like Baker throwing a temper tantrum later and Freddie not having the cojones to stand up to him. That's what I'm. That's what I'm worried about.
Well, I mean, you're being realistic, which
Yeah.
is, and I that's why I can't disagree with you. I mean, like, I'm obviously, I'm realistic about it. I think I'm a little more positive than you are.
Sure.
I mean, where Baker's concerned, I mean, as much I absolutely love Baker. I
Hmm.
love it, but I mean, let's be real honest about what Baker is. He's a rich kid too,
Sure.
and he's a little. I mean, I just got tagged in a post on Facebook, not a half hour before we got on the phone. It was like he was out hanging out maybe last night or something with some friends, and this older lady just went to approach him to say, hey, thanks for bringing Hope back to the city and good luck this year. And he yelled at her or something, according to what she said. And it's
Right.
like, I mean, it could be overblown, it could be fake, but by the same token, if you watch documentaries about him, his family's got some money, and he's a little bit of a spoiled guy, and
Sure.
so he's got that attitude. So, I mean, to your point about, like, what if he throws a fit, like, can Freddie, like, rein him in? It's like, well, that may come, and I don't know if I'm as worried about Freddie as you are.
Well, I wouldn't be worried about it if he had any other proof anywhere. But there's nothing to look at that says that he can coach an entire team. There's lots of evidence that he can be a great coordinator, whether it was where is he, in Cardinals, St. Louis, or LA?
Well, he was never an offensive coordinator before last year.
But
He was a running backs coach,
he's a
tight ends coach, and
Yeah. He's coached, but he's never handled everything. That's the part that worries me, is it's a huge job. I mean, and he's put good people around him, or Dorsey or whoever put good people around him. But dude, going it's like going from being the guy that sweeps the floor at the hospital to being the surgeon. It's a huge jump. And now maybe you're good with a knife and you can go from broom to scalpel, but it doesn't happen often. That's where I worry, is that he might get overloaded. That's all.
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, that's a realistic way to look at it, and I I just think it's having. I mean, you've played sports. I mean,
Yeah, of
not on a
course.
professional level, but you played team sports. I mean, you know the importance of relationships
Mm-hmm.
and how that can affect, like, a whole team.
Yeah.
And I think Freddie's relationships with guys like Baker and all that, and the other guys on the team, I think it goes a long way. So I'm not as nervous, because it's like they always throw this term around, like, players coach,
Mm-hmm.
and the players love Freddie, but you never hear him being called a players coach, because he busts people's balls, and
Right.
he's you're going to work. So it's like, I think it's a little different. So I think with him, I'm a little more optimistic, because he's not like one of those guys, when you call him a players coach, he's kind of a softie.
Yeah.
He
No,
backs
he's
down
not.
for people. He's not like that. So
Yeah, I just,
you know,
again, this is me being more of the historical fan of the game than today's player, which I guess I should probably pay more attention to that. You got to be softer for today's player. But, if you look at the great coaches of all time, there's not a one of them that people are like, oh, he was such a great players coach. Not Belichick, not Parcells, not Bill Walsh,
Lombardi, yeah.
not Tom Coughlin, none of these guys. All of these guys were, Lombardi, all of these guys
Paul
were.
Brown.
Yeah.
Oh, it's our own guy.
Yeah.
Known as the legendary just ball buster.
Yeah. And even more recently, one of our guys that had success here and with the Chiefs, Marty. Marty
Yep.
was an absolute asshole, but he got production out of his guys. And, the guys that are considered players coaches don't have a ton. I mean, who's considered a good players coach that's successful? Andy Reid?
I can't. I don't know. I don't know if he's a player's coach. I can't honestly think of one.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andy Reid is
They make great
considered.
coordinators.
Yeah, I think
They
Andy.
make great
Yeah,
coordinators.
Romeo Crennel was a good players coach, except for they didn't win any games under Romeo Crennel.
No, he was the coach in 07 when they
Okay.
went 10-6.
Yeah, and you're not putting that up as a fluke at all. You're thinking that was legit. Stop it. Stop it.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. No. That would have been legit if Derek Anderson, if they had a real quarterback. I mean, the one thing that I can't believe people don't notice this, but I wish we were doing the podcast back then because we'd have like actual recorded evidence of me saying this.
Right.
But the first half of the season, the Browns were killing people. Derek Anderson was just a house on fire. Second half of that season, he sucked.
Right.
And no one saw it because they were still winning, and he was just barely good enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was at that Cincinnati game at the end of the season that basically cost us the playoff spot when he threw 4 picks. I was in Cincinnati for that game, and he's trying to throw a 25-yard pass and it's getting intercepted by the linebacker 6 yards down the field. I'm like, you're a jackass. I mean, I think with a better, more consistent quarterback, that team was definitely not a fluke.
Right.
But
fair enough. Speaking of the quarterback, and I know we're jumping all over the map, but that's fine. That's kind of what we do.
That's okay.
I
had a segue about relationships, but I'll do that next.
All right. Are you concerned? I was a little concerned that they kept Stanton and traded Blau. I thought Blau was a pretty good number 3, and they should have got rid of Stanton.
No, they kept Garrett Gilbert.
But did they keep Stanton or get rid of him?
No, Stanton's the backup and Gilbert's the number 3.
I get that. I think it should have been. Okay, that's what I thought. I think it should have been Gilbert and Blau and made Stanton some kind of coach or advisor or something. He's not good.
Well,
he can't play anymore.
Well, he's got a winning record as a starter, and he's been in Freddie's system for so long that basically he is a coach.
But he looked terrible on the field. If Baker, God forbid, and please God, do not let this happen. But if Baker gets hurt, who would you rather have out on the field based on what you've seen?
Oh, Garrett Gilbert for sure.
Yeah, not Drew Stanton, who we would get. We would get Stanton first, right? Stanton is the 2.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to wonder, like, if they would actually do that, or if he comes in and has like a bad game, would they put Gilbert in? Would he have a short leash? Because they have Gilbert behind him. Like,
so, but if that's your theory, then why keep him? Just make him a coach.
Well, who's to say? Well, okay. He still wants to play, even as a backup. If you say, hey, like, we don't want you to quarterback, we want you to be a coach, he's probably going to go F you, and he's going to go sign someplace else, and you lose that guy. And apparently, like, he's like a huge, like, sounding board for Baker. Like he has, like, incredible value to Baker, so they don't want to let him go for that reason.
It goes to weakening the team to me. That you're keeping a weaker guy on there because he's a sounding board.
Well, dude, he's like a second, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator that you have. I mean, seriously, and honestly, don't you think you're being a little bit of a tool, like jerking yourself around about a second string quarterback? I mean, is it really that big of a deal?
See, I do think it's that big of a deal because we haven't addressed the offensive line. I do think that it is that big of a deal. I think that I have real concern about the offensive line. I have real concern about – I don't think Baker is going to go 16 games without getting whacked this year hard. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get hurt, but I'm saying that because they didn't address the issue, or they're addressing it with guys that are, part-time starters at best in their NFL career, I have definite concern about keeping that guy upright for 16 games.
I'm only worried about the right guard spot, honestly, because the other 4 guys were part of the line last year that I think it was like the last 8 games, Baker only got sacked 5 times. And you have 4 of those 5 guys. And now I'm not going to downplay, losing Zeitler and saying, oh, if you've got 4 or 5, you're fine, because we've seen what happens when you have a good offensive line, but one guy sucks. Like it all comes crumbling down. We know that. Yeah. So I'm not discounting it, but
you're not worried about Cush or Wyatt, or you're not worried about that?
No, that's the only position I'm worried about, because you still have, Greg Robinson played very well at left tackle last year. So I'm not worried about that. J.C. Tretter and Joel Bitonio. Obviously, you don't worry about those guys.
Right.
And Hubbard was serviceable at right tackle. He wasn't, we're not talking about him going, what the hell are they doing at right tackle? It's just the right guard spot.
Yeah.
So,
which means that we're going to basically have no running game toward the inside right, and Baker on his throwing side is going to be wide open to get whacked.
Yeah, again, I'm not downplaying it. I just, it's so funny because right out of the gate, you said you still feel like a Browns, like I can't just jump totally on board because the last 20 years, this, that, and it. Man, you sound like it. You're over there like biting your nails on every last issue. Like,
I am.
The right guard, the punter, like this to that. I'm like, man, like try to calm down a little bit. Like it's okay to have a little bit of.
I'm sure I will calm down when I see it on the field. But the last time I saw it on the field, I was 20 years old. Now I'm 50. It's been ages.
30 years since we last won the division.
My God, dude, it's been so long that I was barely out of high school last time we won the division. Now I'm almost in the crypt. So my God, dude, forgive me for living to the last 25 years that we've been given.
Right. Well, like we always say, like the show is a homer and a realist, and it's like, I think I'm a little more realistic than you expected, and I think you're a little more negative than I expected.
Well, again, dude, we'll get to predictions in a minute, but I'm not predicting 6-10 either. I think they're gonna be good. I definitely have.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
What are you thinking for a record, since you brought that up?
Probably 10-6.
That's my exact number. And if I have to, dude, if I have to hear one more of these national a-holes talking about, if they go 8-8, that's a successful season. I'm like, they were 7-8-1 last year.
Yeah.
You want a half game better as a success?
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Here's my answer. Shut up, cowherd. Jerk.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that guy just needs to,
He is a jagoff.
I hate that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean 10-6, and to me it all comes down to, the season being divided into two parts, because the first half is much more difficult.
Yeah.
And I think if they can get out of the first 8 games at 5-3, I think you are really on a fast track to the playoffs, because that half of the season you've got the Seahawks and the Rams and the Patriots and and the second half of the season you've got the Cardinals and the Bills and the Dolphins, and I mean it's just
what game are you again? What game are you most concerned about? See, I have an easy answer for me. I'll go with mine while you think about yours. My biggest concern game is the Rams, because it's the game of the great, what we would consider the elite teams right now, I guess, or the great teams of today. It is the one that I think we're for sure better than talent-wise. On every level, we have better skill players. We have a better defense. We have a better defensive line than they do. They have some great players. I'm not trying to discount Jared Goff.
They got Aaron Donald.
I'm not discounting them, but you know what? If we're gonna say Aaron Donald versus why did I go blank? The best player we have on defense, Miles. If we're gonna go Aaron Donald versus Myles Garrett, who you taking? I'll take Myles.
Donald.
I'll take Myles. I think Myles Garrett is going to become Lawrence Taylor this year without the drug habit.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, now that to me is something on paper I want to see. I mean, I think Myles can get there, but I think without having seen it, Aaron Donald right now is considered, the best defensive player in the league. Okay. So, I completely agree that Myles could.
Okay. Even if you take even taking Aaron Donald though, is it by a lot or by a little?
No, it's by a little for sure.
Yeah, so it's almost a push, and that's their best guy. That is by far their best guy. Who are you going to take, Baker or Goff?
Oh, I'm taking Baker all day long.
I'll take Baker all day long too. Who are you going to take, Odell Beckham or whoever the hell they're throwing to?
Cooper Kupp. Yeah.
Yeah, Todd Gurley or Nick Chubb. I'll take Nick Chubb.
His knees are at least working.
Yeah, Gurley, they held him out in the playoffs when he was healthy.
But that's why they held him out, though. He wasn't healthy.
Well,
his knees are jacked up. He's got like a degenerative condition.
Oh, well, in that case, yeah, I'll definitely take Nick Chubb. I'll take Kareem Hunt too.
Yeah. I think, if I had to say I'm nervous about any games, I'm going to go with 2, which ends up being 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm worried about any games, it's the Baltimore and Pittsburgh games, because if the Browns truly want to move into elite status in the NFL, you got to win your division. And if you're going to win the division, you're going to have to go through Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And with, Roethlisberger's record against us, it's, you have to overcome those.
Yeah.
So I'm most nervous about those because I want to see the Browns actually show up to those games and win those games and actually finally make that statement on the field of the division. We are the powerhouse in the division now.
Right.
Games like the Seahawks and, the Rams and the Patriots, those are obvious choices. But to me, because you don't play them all the time, there's a false sense of optimism and security the team might get into because they don't see those teams all the time. Whereas with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they know what they're getting.
Right.
So they might be in their, those two teams could be in their heads a little bit, like knowing like these are the powerhouses, we've lost them all the time. But and that can affect them.
Yeah.
Whereas those other games, they don't have that. Are
you sold on Baltimore? I'm not sold on Baltimore, man. I think I honestly think their season last year was very much fluky. I'm not sold on Lamar Jackson at all. I'm not.
I am, because honestly, last year, if the Browns would have taken him, I would have been perfectly fine with it, because in college, like everyone's, all he does is run, yada yada. But what a lot of people weren't talking about is that his passing numbers improved every season, and they improved enormously his senior year.
Right.
So, it's not that the guy can't pass. It's just that they didn't make him do it. And that's why, I'm a little nervous, because once they start having him throw more, he can do it. The guy is a complete package. So,
yeah,
but the way that they're doing that,
he has that long motion. The way he throws is that long, slow motion, which is almost never worked in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think that because he's such a threat to run, he can get away with that long throwing motion because it gives him more time in the pocket. Because everyone's like, they back off a little bit because they're afraid he's going to take off and start running the thing.
They have to stay in lanes.
Yeah. The thing I think that could hold him back is if they really try and base that new offense of theirs around his running ability, the guy's going to get killed. We've seen it with every running quarterback there is. Eventually they get hurt, and pretty seriously. So if that's what they're going to do is like, we're going to do this like college style running quarterback, type of offense, they're in some trouble.
Yeah.
And I think, their defense took a step back. So, let's face it, we beat them last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we can't beat them. And we were, on the cusp of beating them in Baltimore that last game.
Right.
So we know that we can, go toe-to-toe with them. Pittsburgh, first game last year, should have beat them. And, we got kind of worked in that, second game. But that game, at that point, that was, Hugh's last game. And everything was so screwed internally that it was like, so who knows. But, I think we can play with them. Mm-hmm. So, Baltimore doesn't worry me a ton. But they do because, they've been there. There's something to be said for experience, and they've been to the playoffs. They've won Super Bowls. They've won the division. We've never done that. I've said all off season that the only two things I think that can hold the Browns back truly are, injuries and them buying into their own press clippings.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that I don't worry so much about their press clippings because, like, OBJ's been reading about how great he is for years, and it hasn't slowed him down a bit. So I don't think he's going to. I think Landry feels like he's got something to prove. And I think until Baker wins a championship, he's not satisfied anyway. So he's not going to give a shit if somebody says he's the greatest thing in the world because he throws for 450 yards in a game.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. So, one thing I wanted to bring up, I said I had an awesome segue earlier, and you just mentioned OBJ and Jarvis, and something that I want to address. It's more, I don't know how you feel about this because I don't know if you've been in this situation, but you keep seeing all these people talking about, what happens when, what if Jarvis Landry's getting more targets than OBJ, and how are they going to handle those egos and everything? And it's like, I don't know. When you were playing baseball and team sports and stuff, did you ever play on a team with one of your best friends?
Oh yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good, because I did, and OBJ and Jarvis being best friends, like, this, like, I played when I was playing soccer. I played with my best friend, and he was an excellent forward, and he could score, and I was excellent as well. Hard to believe because I'm a fat piece of shit now, but
you.
Yeah, imagine that. I was athletic, but and it was like I never had a competitive bone in my body where he was concerned. Like, it was, if he scored, I was thrilled. I don't care if it was at the expense of my own scoring. And people just don't take that into consideration with this relationship that they have, that, these guys, like, I mean, they've done this before on the same team where, if one's kicking ass, the other one's going, yeah, my best friend's kicking ass. That goes such a long way. So I think all these people that are worried about, what if one of them doesn't get enough targets, they're going to throw a fit because they're divas. Like, no, like they're pumped up because their best friend is kicking ass. Like that. I mean, do you agree with me on that? Having played with your best friend, because I mean, I have, and I'm telling you, to me, that's just, I can't believe that people aren't taking that into consideration.
I'm competitive about everything, so. If somebody with any of my with my podcast, if somebody had one more download than me, I'm going to be fucking scrambling for 3 weeks trying to figure out why. I'm that guy. And I don't care who it is. I'm very competitive like that, and I get that. Playing with your best friend, I always wanted to be better. I'm not going to lie. I didn't wish him bad, but I better be better.
Okay, and granted, I agree, but when he was successful, were you pissed off?
No.
Or were you, oh, that's cool, my best friend just kicked ass? No. Yeah. It's like you're pushing each other.
Yeah.
But you're not sitting there pouting because you're not getting the attention.
Yeah. I don't think
you would if it was just some guy you don't know.
I don't think it'll be a problem for OBJ and for Jarvis this year. I think when it comes down to contract, because now we're talking about a different thing. Now we're talking about their money. And when it comes down to what they're going to get paid on their next contract, that's when you're going to be like, yeah, we're buddies and all, but, being your buddy and taking a step back is going to cost me $4 million a year, and that's when I think it comes into play. Obviously, neither of those guys are up for a contract this year. So I think this year, if I know you think I'm super negative about Freddie, I will put this part out there, and it plays into what we're talking about here. If Freddie has done one thing amazingly well, it is created that culture of we expect to win. And everybody seems to be buying into that. So I don't think, at least for this year or until they win, either until they win or until one of them is up for a contract, I don't think it's going to matter. I think all they're going to care about is winning. I think if Jarvis catches 2 passes all year, but one of them is to win the Super Bowl, OBJ will be happy, Jarvis will be happy, Baker will be happy, Nick Chubb will be happy, Giuseppe, while he's watching from home, will be happy.
Hey, stop that. I'm bummed out that he didn't make the team.
He might make the practice squad eventually.
I was kind of surprised that they didn't keep him because
they need a return guy.
Exactly, they need a return guy. He's got 4.3 speed, for God's sakes. It's like if you're gonna take a chance on the Scottish Hammer, why aren't you taking a chance on Shahid Giuseppe?
Because the Scottish
he's got that awesome Paisan name, Giuseppe.
The Scottish Hammer didn't fumble.
Well, yeah, but he also didn't return one for a touchdown either. So
yeah, but that's against minor leaguers. He fumbled against minor leaguers.
Dude, come on.
I'm just telling you how they
return for a touchdown. Punt return for a touchdown.
Dude, the old days of Willie Galt, where you brought in the Olympic speed guy. Those days are done. If you don't have the full skill set, it's not happening these days.
Yeah, hard to argue. Hard to argue. God, there was something else I was going to ask you. I don't remember, but all right. So you're saying 10-6.
I am.
I think that's realistic, and I thought so before the season. And again, my thought process comes back to if they can. I really think 6-2 in the last 8 is doable. If they can do the 5-3 in the first half, obviously it's going to put them at 11-5. I think I'd be more comfortable with 11 wins than 10 because, as we saw in 2007, sometimes there's those fluke years where you can win 10 games and still not make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be much happier with 11 wins.
Sure.
But I think it was Doug Lee Maurice, maybe one of our local writers, did an awesome article a couple months ago about why. First of all, he thinks they're going 12-4, which would be amazing.
That'd be great, but stop it.
Yeah, well, I mean, but he was talking about why 10-6 is so realistic, and the logic behind it is if you sweep Cincinnati and split with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, there's 4-2 right there, and then you have to carve out 6 more wins, and you're talking about playing teams like the Titans and the Jets and the Niners and the Cardinals, Bills, Dolphins. So when you look at the way the schedule lines up, if you can go 4-2 in the division, 10-6 really becomes a pretty doable thing.
I honestly think to make playoffs this year, we got to go 5-1 in division. We cannot.
I agree.
You cannot give the Bengals one of those wins. You can't. That's just that's crazy talk there. How are the Bengals going to beat us?
No, I said sweep the Bengals and split with Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. We cannot give the Bengals a win this year. They have to be treated like they're a minor league team. They got to be treated like they're the Birmingham Iron.
I'll be interested to see what they're like because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but before Dalton got injured against us, I'm pretty sure they started out 5-1.
Yeah, so it's still Andy Dalton.
It's
Andy Dalton. AJ Green, didn't I already see he's already hurt for half the season or something?
Yeah, he's injured.
He's hurt again. So who's Dalton even got to throw to? Somebody. That Tyler Boyd guy established himself last year. Okay.
So I mean he's an option. Yeah. And I know because I took a flyer on him in fantasy when I started hearing his name after AJ Green went down. He got me a ton of points. So
right.
He's good, and you got Joe Mixon who's a good running back. But man, that defense is so awful.
Yeah, they're terrible. Joe Mixon has been solid for a couple of years, so he's due to screw up and get suspended again, isn't he?
Well, he wasn't suspended. He was the one that in college was
beat up his chick or something.
Some random girl in a fast food place who was on security camera just knocking her out because she mouthed off to him as he was walking away.
Should have had those fries ready.
No, it was another customer. If you haven't seen it, look it up.
I need to see it.
God,
if it's really brutal, I need to watch. That's terrible enough that I would never want to see such a thing.
Yeah, no, it's God, that was a bad one. I was like, God bless. So, their defense is just so bad.
Yeah,
and personally, I don't know how you feel about this. And I hate to say it because it's just it's against every orange and brown bone in my body, but to me, the division still goes through Pittsburgh. And so I think people are overrating, they lost Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, they're screwed. No, they got Juju Smith-Schuster. Their defense is really good, and
Connor's not bad. Connor's a pretty good running back too.
Yeah, and Christ's sakes, Ben Roethlisberger threw for 5,000 yards last year. It's I hate the guy, but he's not done by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So it's what. Again, that's why I go back to what I said a minute ago. I'm worried about the Baltimore and Pittsburgh games because those are the teams that have been there and done it. And until we can beat them consistently, you
Yeah.
know, that's where we want to be.
Right. Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. All I know is I'm glad it's finally here. Jesus. Dude,
I know this was longest off season ever.
longest and shortest. I mean, it seems now that we're here, it seems like, wow, that was pretty quick since the last time we did a podcast. But,
I know.
at the same time, I was like, dude, the funniest part is you were texting me probably 2 weeks after the season doing this whole, you think we should do an off-season podcast? Because you wanted to keep talking about the Browns.
I honestly have been watching like Browns highlights all off season.
Sure.
Like I go to their YouTube channel constantly. I mean, just today I was watching Baker Mayfield highlight videos this morning.
Yeah.
And it's like I cannot get enough of it. It's like, you know, and bringing it full circle. Like this is how it felt to me when I was a kid in the 80s when you come out of the chute, and we don't know this to be a fact, but back then we did. You know, you come out of the chute and you know that the Browns are Super Bowl contenders, and you're like,
Right.
okay, the Browns are going to beat the shit out of most teams they play, and they're going to be good, and you know the quarterback is a complete and total rock star. I mean, this feels like it did when I was a kid when I first became a fan of the Browns, when I was first exposed to them. It's
Sure.
like I can't, like I just can't help it, and. You know, I'm so ready for this first game next week. I mean, like, my head's going to explode before Sunday if it gets much worse.
Do you?
Is
your band playing on Saturday?
No, because I took it off because I was supposed to do the classic metal show with you.
That's right.
So I have that available.
So you probably won't sleep at all. You'll drink all night Saturday, just pre-gaming for Sunday's game.
I'm telling you, it's, you know, I honestly, you know what I might do, which is a rarity for me? I might, because I have nothing else going on, I might actually go to bed at a reasonable hour because Steph and I want to get downtown about 9 o'clock
Right.
and kind of like take in whatever the tailgating things are and the
Right.
parties and everything and just experience the energy, be a part of what's going on downtown because, you know, I mean, we're season ticket holders, obviously, as you know,
Right.
people who listen to the show know, and so we're at all the games. But that energy when Baker came into that Jets game was like nothing I've ever experienced.
Sure.
And now, you know, with all the optimism and people going crazy about OBJ and all this stuff in the off season, I mean, downtown is going to be ready to absolutely explode.
Right.
And we were at the Orange and Brown scrimmage. There were 37,000 people, and it felt like some of the home games did when the Browns sucked. I mean, it was that, and so they say the Browns suck, but I mean, there were, you know, the fans that were there were the diehards, and they were still going nuts, and it was
Right.
like, and that's for a scrimmage.
Right.
So I can't even imagine what it's going to be like on opening day.
Well, it's
So
gonna be good.
I mean,
Do you have a score? Or
Yep.
No. Do you have a score?
I'm not sure. Like I say, I mean, I do have one. I wouldn't say this is a prediction. I'm just going to say that this is something I wouldn't be surprised if it happens.
All right.
And you might think I'm doing drugs saying this. I would not be surprised if the Browns log 10 sacks or more.
Wow.
Defensively, because I actually looked up some of the Titans stuff about their offensive line, and
Really?
it sucks. And I think if you combine a crap offensive line with our defensive line being as talented as they are,
Mm-hmm.
plus the energy of being at home with all the expectations and finally getting out there, I feel like it's just going to be an absolute bloodbath up front. So I'm not saying it's going to happen because that's a ton of sacks and it's rare, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're just all over Mariota all day long.
So 44-10.
Yeah, right. It's like the super Bill Swarovski super fans on Saturday Night. Mini Bear 72 God Tree. No, I mean it's hard because it could be a normal game or, you know, the Browns could roll them. I mean, I would not be surprised at all if the Browns like pulled off like a 30-10 or a 30-13 victory.
Right. I'm gonna say 24-10 Browns. I definitely feeling Browns winning. I'm still thinking that there's gonna be some rust between the receivers. You know, we're gonna spend a half anyway getting in sync, and look, and if they score more than that, I'm happy. And I have a hard time looking past to the Titans completely, even though I know their offensive line is terrible. They're still a good team. They were last year. They really didn't lose too much. I mean, they lost some key people, but they didn't lose too much. It just
I just think they're one of those middle of the road teams that sometimes they have a good game, sometimes they have a crap game.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're just So I don't. They're just one of those teams that I'm just not sold on.
I just want to see. I want to see the Browns go like 38-10, 44-10, 51-3, just so we can hammer our friend Toomey for a solid year.
you know he'll be pissed off because we'll both be hitting up like, how's that taste? Like
every time he calls into my show or whatever, or I do his podcast, it'll be like, hey, what's up? 51-3. What's happening?
Have the bruises gone away yet?
Yeah. What are we talking about? Pantera, or why your team still sucks compared to mine?
Isn't that the greatest thing? I think that's going to be the greatest thing if the Browns actually finally turn the corner. Like, we can legitimately talk crap on people, and it's like we never, because as big of a diehard as I am, I don't talk crap. Like, I'm at least with my friends when they rip the Browns, I'm like, yeah, we're not good. But when they're I just get on people when they're unrealistic about, oh, they suck, they're the worst team. Like, no, that other teams are worse. Like, let's not go overboard. So I just want to be able to actually be like, yeah, your team sucks because we just whooped you by 3 touchdowns, you sorry sack of shit. Like,
dude, the last time I was able to talk shit about a team, I was in Korea, and that was in 1987.
Oh my God.
That's how bad it's been. I mean,
Dude.
when you're overseas, I mean, you're only getting like scores at that point, because that was before the internet and everything else. So we would get scores like on Monday morning or Monday afternoon or whatever to our games. And then we would just, everybody's from all over the country in the military. So, you would get the Stars and Stripes newspaper that would have it, and you would be like, ha ha, the Oilers suck, Meanwhile, we didn't even know what was going on. All we would see was the score. Yeah, 38-16 or whatever. We'd be like, ha, your team stinks.
See, my trash talk the last several years has been relegated solely to Ohio State football. Especially when it comes to Michigan, when you're like 15-1 against them in the last 16, it's like, so when you're as big of a Cleveland homer as I am, and your trash talk literally has to revolve around the college team, that's not a good thing.
Well, I will say, in fairness, I don't even watch college football, but anytime I see any Michigan people talking shit, I absolutely jump in on it, even though I don't even watch. I just refuse to let them have any say, because fuck Michigan.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and I do the same thing. Like, when they start mouthing, "Oh, Ohio State sucks," I'm like, "Dude, you're our bitch. Yeah. You've lost 14 of the last 15 games against us. You can't talk."
What are you talking about?
You cannot talk.
Yeah, are you referring to our women's highlight team or something? I mean, because clearly you can't be talking football. I don't even watch it, and I know that they beat you like a redheaded stepchild with one leg and a big food bill. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
How did you bust out highlight?
I don't know. It just came.
The most random sport ever. Like,
because that's why. That's because awesome. It's the most random sport ever.
I know. They might actually beat us in that.
Yeah, exactly. Because when's the last time you saw anybody in Cleveland with one of those rounded highlight paddles or whatever those things are called?
Yeah. Yep. Oh God. So, all right. So you're going 24-10, and I'm going 30-13.
There we go. Sounds good.
So. Sounds good. And then we got our season picks in. We both think 10-6 is realistic. So we are officially on record. So let's see if the Browns and my boy Baker can back us up. So, thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Dog Pound Podcast. We appreciate it. As always, we will be here every week with our reactions and rants and all that stuff. So, this is an exciting season, man. It's just nice to go into this and actually have something to look forward to and not have it be blind, dumb homer hope like I usually have. I think even you can admit that, we've got something legitimate going on. So, and before we get out of here, I have to address one last thing that, the reason that we're going to be good
Okay.
It's because of our podcast.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we were such good luck last year that now, we got a season under our belt too. So
the last 2 seasons before the Dog Pound podcast started, they won 1 game. You do realize that,
yes.
right? And once we came in, 7 wins. So this year, 12 more. No.
Yeah, I'm changing my 15-1 in a Super Bowl championship or bust.
That's right. That's exactly
solely because of us.
Dude, okay, one last question, and then we'll get done with this. So they go all Patriots this year. They go win every game and lose the Super Bowl. Are you devastated or are you thrilled?
Oh, my God, that's a tough one.
I know, I'm devastated.
Yeah, I think I would be too. And in fact, I know I would be because the year that the Panthers a couple years ago went 15-1.
Yeah.
And made it to the Super Bowl. Like, that's my second favorite team because I wanted to follow an expansion team and the Browns left. I think I've told that story on the show.
Sure.
But I was so sure that they were going to win, and I would finally get to feel what it would feel like if a team that I actually enjoy won a championship. And then they didn't. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I just can't win. So, I think in fact, I know I'd be devastated because if you're 18-0, I mean, you have to be sitting there going, well, who's going to beat us? Like, you've got all this, momentum, and to have it come crashing down, I mean, it's much different than, being 12-0 and losing in week 13. You're like, oh, okay, we'll still make the playoffs, and we can, But when you lose in the Super Bowl, no, your season's official. It's like almost like in college. Yeah. When you lose one game, you're like, you're not making the playoffs now. Like, son of a bitch.
Right, exactly. Well, dude, the only thing I can equate it to is the '97 World Series, and I'm a baseball guy, and I mean that was ours. We should have won it, and I remember when was it Craig Counsell that hit the ball off Nagy that won the game? I think maybe it was some. So. I think that's who it was. Whoever it was, I know it was off Nagy, and I just remember falling onto my floor, banging the floor, just in absolute agony that we lost because that was ours. That was the championship, and it just didn't happen. And it was right, even closer than the Cubs series, although that was devastating too a few years ago. The Cubs.
Well, I mean, that was the rain delay. Yeah. The rain delay killed it.
The rain delay.
If that rain had not have fallen, we'd have won that game. The momentum was so back on our side.
But '97, because that team was unreal, and to lose in that fashion was just horrible to a shit 210 hitter. Oh,
yep.
God.
Well, and to a city who had, I mean, I think the Marlins were around for, I think that was their 5th season of existence.
Yeah.
And I mean, that city don't give a crap about baseball, and here they are winning a title, and here we are in Cleveland going, but it's us. Like, we deserve this. Yeah. Like, that's what sucked.
And if I remember right, that was one of those Wayne Huizenga things where the minute they won the title, he blew up the team.
Yeah, he did. He just completely gutted everything.
Oh. Man, now I feel bad.
Downer.
What an awful way to end this podcast.
Man, thank God I'm up in the man cave. You're driving me to drink, and thankfully I've got some drinks up here.
Well, how about if we do this? How about I just want to say real quick, and this is an actual business point of the podcast for a second. Please share this with people. Share it with your friends, anybody that is a Browns fan. Let them know that we exist, and it's not your corporate bullshit podcast that everybody else is doing. Let people know. They can go to dogpoundpodcast.com. You can sign up and subscribe there. We're also on all the other avenues, whether it's Spotify, Apple, iTunes, iHeart, everywhere that does podcasts. I think we're on at this point. So share it around with your friends, people. Let's get some interaction going. info@dogpoundpodcast.com if you want to send us an email telling us that we suck or we're good or a little both. And and that's it. But let's grow it this year. Last year we did it for fun. This year we'd like to see a couple people participate.
Yes, I agree. And if you want to banter live with us, we do get on our Twitter page pretty frequently and go back and forth there. I know I took some digs at some opposing fans on there in the last few weeks that were acting like douchebags. So it was like, screw you. I think it was in fact I think it might, I forget if it was my personal page or if it was the show page, but Michael Rappaport, the actor, posted a short video of him ripping on Baker Mayfield with his dumb New York accent going, Baker Mayfield, keep my quarterback's name out your mouth.
Oh,
I'm like,
up.
just shut up, you douchebag.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going all gangsta? Like, you're all tough and everything? Shut the fuck up, man. You know, read the whole article before you spew off at the mouth, you knucklehead.
Yeah,
So
shut up. The best you ever did was being an extra on Friends, so shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's where I remember him from. The only time I remember him too. So
yeah, he did a bunch of bad movies. Like, wasn't he in some bad movie with David Caruso, like Jade or something? He was.
I wouldn't know because I only remember him from Friends.
He was. I just remember him as Phoebe's cop boyfriend from Friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what a fag I am for remembering that. Jesus.
Hey, I remembered it too, so don't feel bad.
Two Queers.
So,
Is that the new name of the show? Two Queers Talking Browns?
Basically, might as well be, man. So, all right, man. Well, thanks everybody for checking out the first episode of this season's edition of the Dog Pound Podcast. We appreciate it. Like Chris said, share. Let us know your thoughts. If you want to hit us up and interact with us, please do. And until next week, we will be back hopefully talking about a dominant Browns victory. Here we go, Brownies! Here we go!
Thanks for listening to the Dog Pound Podcast. Be part of the next edition by sending your thoughts to Woof, that's WOOF, at dogpoundpodcast.com or by calling us at 216-503-6404. See you next time, and go Browns!